Hello and thank you for watching. This is STSC back again with LEGO Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. And here we have Megatron in his tank mode. And right off the bat, I want to say it's probably not entirely accurate. Admittedly, I played fast and loose with the tank mode proportions in order to prioritize the robot mode. So if you were to hold this up to a screenshot from the film, there's definitely a few inaccuracies you could point out. But that being said, I still feel it's pretty obviously Revenge of the Fallen Megatron, and I don't think it's too inaccurate. Turning him around, he does have the two main thrusters on the back of the tank. Admittedly, they aren't properly positioned, but I think it looks fine. He also has the two secondary thruster pods on either side right here that I've represented with binoculars. Looking at him from a profile view, you'll notice that the treads probably aren't as long as they should be. This was mainly so that they could transform into small enough feet to not look ridiculous on the robot mode. I did my best to avoid the asymmetry of the robot mode from carrying over into the tank. However, there is just the tiniest bit of asymmetry that bleeds through in the core here. And of course he has his face front and center between the treads, exactly where it's supposed to be. However, I couldn't fit in the cage that is supposed to cover it partially. He is missing the secondary set of turrets that is supposed to be mounted around here on the tank. I did have a plan for how to implement them, but it would have required moving this air brake to no longer be centered with the engine. So I just decided to leave them off, because I really don't think they're that important of a detail. For size comparison, here we have a minifigure. And the Fallen. While this alt mode may not be entirely accurate, I'm still pretty happy with how it ended up looking. But that's all I have to say about it, so now it's time to transform. And here we have Megatron in his robot mode. And it's definitely my favorite of the two. I think he pretty accurately captures the look and proportions of the CGI model, and I'm just really happy with how he looks. Spinning him around to get a profile view, you can see he has the twin tread feet, and going a little further and looking at his back, you can see he has the thrusters mounted properly on his back. Maybe they're a little bit lower than they should be, but I think it looks pretty good. Unfortunately, the smaller thrusters do just end up hanging off the back of his thighs, which is a little bit awkward. Obviously, he does have the proper asymmetrical arms, and I borrowed a trick from the original Voyager figure and had his GIMP arm form the cannon of the tank. I wanted to make sure the difference in size between the arms was noticeable but not comedic, and I think I was successful in that front. One thing I really like is that I was able to get the gold in the crevices of his chest. If you come in here and look, there is the little bits of gold here between the panels on his chest, which are actually these bar holders. And if you look at the top, obviously the joint where his shoulders attach is gold. And I think it looks pretty neat. And also these little connective bits here are also gold. And it's just enough that it is noticeable, but not too much to where it looks inaccurate. For a size comparison, here we have a minifigure. The Fallen. Starscream. And Dark of the Moon Megatron. I did intentionally try to include some similarities between these two. The way I did the fingers, the shaping of the chest, and of course the head. And obviously you can see that they're the same height. I've built one accessory for Megatron, and it's his lobster claw cannon arm. I would have liked to be able to have this be the default arm and stay on during transformation, but unfortunately I just wasn't able to make it fit. And as is, you just have to swap the existing arm for this. And once it's on, I think it looks appropriately sized. For articulation, at the head he has a ball-jointed neck, which allows him to tilt a little bit, look up and down a little bit, and of course he has left and right movement. At the smaller arm, the shoulder can go in and out, and up and down. Then he has a bicep swivel, a elbow bend that goes 90 degrees. The elbow can also bend in this direction, and of course you can spin around his wrist. For the larger arm, it's mostly the same. It has the same shoulder joint, which allows up and down, forward and back. The same elbow, which can swivel and can rotate 90 degrees. And then at the wrist, he has something a little bit different because the hand can bend like this, or you can even bend it in like that. Alternatively, for the lobster claw, there's still a pivot there, but the bend is a little lower. Or if you want to position it like this, it can bend at the droid hand as well, and you can open up the claw a little bit. For the lower body, he has a ball joint at the waist, which allows for rotation and a little bit of ab crunch. Then at the hips, he has ball joints as well, which allows it to kick forward, kick back, and to spread out pretty much fully. Then at the knees, things get a little bit weird, because he's kind of double jointed, because at the first joint, it can only go this far, but if you leave this panel here, the rest of the foot can bend pretty much 90 degrees. Though, of course, that means now there's this gaping hole where the panel is supposed to be. And right above the knee, he does have a swivel. And you can kind of do an ankle tilt with the toes here, though the heel does not move with it. Lastly, there is kind of a hidden joint in the center of the thigh, which I guess could kind of serve as also a knee joint, though it is kind of awkward looking in my opinion. Megatron has a fair bit of posability, and despite his awkward knees, you can still get him looking pretty cool. And I have to say I'm really happy with how this bot mode looks, especially when posed up. Though the knees definitely make it awkward for him to convincingly stomp Starscream. Well, that's all I have to say about Megatron, and I'll see you next time.